Do you remember? The 70s and 80s were the golden age when fun wasn't locked away inside a smartphone. It was right outside your front door, echoing throughout the neighborhood. It was the era of scraped knees, roaring laughter down the alleyways where all you needed was a rope or a few marbles to fill an entire day. Today, we're taking a deep, nostalgic dive into 20 classic games that define the glorious childhood of a generation, but which have now vanished, been banned, or simply replaced by technology. How many of these games do you remember playing? Drop the name of your favorite childhood game in the comments below. Let's start with a simple but truly magical toy, the spinning top. This little object has captivated humanity for thousands of years. It was even mentioned in the ancient texts of Virgil. Its enduring appeal lies not in fancy technology or bright colors, but in the perfection of its mechanics and the sheer skill required to master it. You remember that primal feeling, wrapping the string tightly around the top, feeling the tension build in your palms. Just before the throw, your heart raced, and when the top started to spin, that was pure exhilaration. Watching it whirl, seemingly defying gravity, felt like a small miracle right before your eyes. In our digital age, the spinning top offers an invaluable experience. It demands dexterity, sharp eye-hand coordination, and, most importantly, patience. A quality often lost in our rushed, digitized lives. Every successful throw, every steady spin, delivered a true sense of accomplishment that no smartphone app could ever replicate. It taught us physics, momentum, and how to conquer disappointment. Amazingly, the top not only survived centuries, but evolved into competitive tournaments where skill became an art form. Now let's talk about a game anyone who spent time on the school playground in those days will never forget: Red Rover. This was more than just a pastime. It was a grueling test where the momentum and strength of one individual faced the collective will of the team. We all remember the setup. Two lines of kids standing opposite each other, hands clasped tightly, eyes watching nervously. Then one team would chant, Red Rover, send name right over." The called player would sprint across the field, aiming for the weakest link in the opposing line. If you broke through, you brought a prisoner back to your team. If you failed, you joined the line you just tried to penetrate. The thrill wasn't just in winning, but in that moment of the charge. Heart pounding, adrenaline surging, with every eye fixed on you. However, that excitement was also its downfall. Red Rover vanished from playgrounds because it was simply too aggressive and risky. Head-on collisions were common, and some kids even tried to clothesline opponents, leading to unavoidable injuries. Back then, scrapes and bruises were badges of honor, a necessary part of childhood. But in today's society where child safety is paramount, Red Rover became too dangerous to officially sanction. Yet, for many, it lives vividly in our memories, a game that recalled a time when freedom, bravery, and the risk of a minor injury were all part of the innocent fun. Next up is a game that was deceptively simple but incredibly addictive: the Balero. Whether known as perinola in Venezuela or boliche in Colombia, the concept was always the same: a small stick attached by a string to a ball or cup. The task sounds easy: toss the ball up and catch it squarely on the stick. But anyone who played remembers the maddening feeling when the ball just grazed the stick and fell off. When you finally succeeded, that rush of joy was indescribable. It was a tiny victory that made you instantly want to try again and again. The Balero was like a mini-gym for the brain and hands. It honed focus, demanded patience, and sharpened fine motor skills in a way modern phone games cannot replace. While digital games overwhelm us with visuals, the Balero challenged us with the simplest thing: gravity. Its gradual disappearance reflects how we've lost patience in play. Kids used to spend hours trying to land one successful strike. Now, screens offer instant gratification, lacking the profound satisfaction gained through effort and patience. Now we turn to a game that makes many people shake their heads today: Smear the Kweer. The name itself is controversial, but the rules were even wilder. Essentially, it was a chaotic variant of tag. Instead of a simple touch, the goal was to aggressively tackle the person holding the ball, known as the Kweer. That person ran for their life while everyone else chased full throttle. Once they were tackled, the tackler became the new Kweer, and the pursuit continued. For those who grew up decades ago, this game delivered supreme excitement. The playground echoed with shouts, pounding feet, and, naturally, dusty falls. To children of that era, a few scrapes or bruises were nothing. They were badges of honor. However, the game vanished not just due to the violence, but primarily because of the name itself. Although many former players insist the term queer didn't carry offensive connotations back then, society has changed drastically. Coupled with increased awareness of LGBTQ+ community respect and growing concerns over physical safety, this game clearly has no place today. Smear the Kweer is a sharp reflection of shifting cultural norms. What was once viewed as innocent fun is now recognized as too dangerous and problematic. It reminds us that not all games can survive the test of time, especially when the wildness of childhood clashes with modern standards of safety and respect. Let's move on to a pastime that was once ubiquitous in American backyards: lawn darts. This was essentially a giant version of traditional darts, but instead of small indoor arrows, you threw long, heavy, metal-tipped darts soaring through the air, aiming to embed them inside a target ring on the grass. Now imagine those heavy, sharp objects plummeting from above right where kids were running around. It's enough to make any modern parent shudder. Many still recall playing with a dusty old set found in a relative's garage. This was a common family activity throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, reflecting a time when safety standards for children were, frankly, much lower than they are today. The truth is, lawn darts didn't fade away naturally like other games. It wasn't replaced by technology. It was outright banned by the government and consumer protection organizations. The reason was clear: the severe risk of injury, from fractures and lacerations to devastating head trauma. Lawn darts has become one of the clearest examples of how modern society prioritizes child safety over old, risky fun. Have you ever been injured playing any of these games? Tell us about it in the comments, because every scar is a childhood memory. Just hearing the word dodgeball is enough to immediately bring back memories of epic throws and classic dodges from gym class in the 70s. Sure, the game still exists today, but the fierce old-school version has completely vanished. Back then, there were no soft foam balls and no rules against throwing above the waist. It was simply a survival battle fought with hard rubber balls. To survive, you had to be fast, agile, and your throw had to be precise. Those glossy red balls whizzed through the air, leaving stinging welts when they hit bare skin. Hit in the face? Painful, yes, but just part of the game. To the kids then, the pain didn't matter. The important thing was to keep standing, keep playing. What was special about the old version was its lack of limitations. You could throw straight at anyone running to eliminate them. The modern game lost the aggressive edge that truly defined it. In the old days, dodgeball taught us lightning reflexes, how to duck and weave, and the pure joy of eliminating an opponent with a perfectly timed throw. Now, with soft balls and strict rules, the painful but thrilling part has been removed. We might forget the red welts on our skin, but we definitely never forget the rush of adrenaline, where every throw and dodge felt like survival. If you played with Clackers in the 70s, you surely remember two things vividly: the piercing clack, clack, clack noise and the sharp pain when you missed. This toy looked simple. Just two hard acrylic balls connected by a sturdy string. But playing it was far from easy. You had to swing your hand up and down rhythmically, making the two balls collide smoothly. In fact, mastering Clackers was almost a rite of passage for many kids. Everyone wanted to prove they had the quick reflexes and coordination. The faster you swung, the louder and more resonant the sound, and the higher the risk of losing control. The consequence? A painful smack to the wrist or arm, leaving a throbbing bruise that only fueled your determination to try again. What made Clackers so beloved was its simplicity and challenge. It was loud, frustrating, but also incredibly captivating. However, like many of the risky games of that era, Clackers quickly became a safety concern. The hard acrylic balls could shatter or fly off with great force, posing dangers not just to the player but to anyone nearby. But for those who grew up in the 70s, it remains a nostalgic icon, reminding us of a time when fun came from simplicity, skill, and unavoidable bruises. Before becoming the iconic toy associated with countless childhoods, the yo-yo had a rather unexpected and dramatic past. In ancient times, the yo-yo is believed to have been used as a practical tool and even as a weapon in combat. The appeal of the yo-yo lies in its dual nature. It's both a pastime and a vibrant physics lesson. Do you remember the feeling when you first successfully pulled off basic tricks like the seesaw or the sleeper? That moment when the disc seemed to defy gravity, hovering at the end of the string, was truly exhilarating. Today, the yo-yo has evolved into professional competition with complex, jaw-dropping performances. But the core joy remains. It demands focus, continuous practice, and patience to overcome failure. However, the rise of digital entertainment has dimmed the yo-yo's visibility. In a world where fun is instantaneous with a touch of a finger, few are patient enough to spend hours perfecting a perfect spin. And that's a shame, because the yo-yo is more than just a toy. It's a lesson in persistence, momentum, and the joy of conquering a physical challenge. Next is Matatena, more commonly known as jacks. This game originated from the simplest items, pebbles and small seeds, before evolving into the asterisk-shaped metal or plastic pieces many still remember. It was actually an intense test of coordination and reflexes. Picture the scene. You toss a small rubber ball into the air. In the brief moment the ball is airborne, you have to swiftly snatch the jacks pieces from the ground and catch the ball before it drops. The feeling was like being a juggler and a surgeon simultaneously. Every movement had to be timed perfectly. The tension, the speed, the pressure to complete the task before the ball hit the ground, it was incredibly thrilling. Jacks was a mini-gym for both the brain and the hands. It forced precise eye-hand coordination, training the ability to think quickly and act accurately. Despite its simplicity, it demanded more energy and focus than most modern skill apps on a phone. Its disappearance reflects a shift in how children play. Yet for those who played, jacks proved that simplicity combined with physical challenge could be as addictive as any modern entertainment. Try to picture yourself kneeling low to the ground, finger taut, the shooter marble perfectly positioned. You lock your eyes on the target, and in that moment of tension, you release your finger. The marble flies, strikes exactly where intended, and the pure joy of a perfect shot stays with you forever. Through this game, children learned focus, patience, and real-world geometry without ever opening a textbook. Marbles is perhaps the oldest game on this list. Archaeologists have found marbles in Egyptian children's tombs, dating back over 3,000 years. Every game of marbles was a subtle lesson in calculation and strategy. We learned how to judge angles, estimate hand strength, and adhere to fair rules. Unbeknownst to us, these lessons honed spatial and mathematical thinking. Today, glass marbles are still collected as cherished items, but the game itself is fading. The reasons? Urbanization eliminated the vacant lots and sandy playgrounds, and children are increasingly captivated by fast-paced screen games. Do you think these physical, non-digital games provided better life lessons than modern video games? Comment yes or no if you agree. With just a piece of chalk and a stretch of sidewalk, Hopscotch could transform any ordinary street into a colorful playground. Simply drawing interconnected squares, numbered from start to finish, and a mini-stadium was ready. The rules were clear and engaging. Toss the marker into the correct square, then hopscotch through the boxes, maintaining perfect balance and strictly avoiding the lines. Hopscotch taught kids more skills than we realized. It honed balance, hand-foot coordination, and spatial planning, how to hop accurately while remembering the marker's location. Above all, it demanded focus, as a single missed step meant you were out. But like many outdoor games, hopscotch is gradually disappearing as urbanization spreads. The wide sidewalks and quiet yards, once filled with laughter and the clop-clop sound of hopping feet, have given way to traffic, buildings, and pavement. The old community habit where kids would drop by a friend's house, see a chalk court drawn, and immediately start playing has become a memory. One of the street games that once filled neighborhoods with children's laughter was Stop, or Estop. This game combined running, memory, and a touch of geography. The rules started simply. Players drew a large circle on the ground, divided into sections, each named after a country. One player stood in the middle while others ran around. When the leader shouted, "Stop!" everyone instantly froze like statues. The person in the middle then tried to tag the nearest player while simultaneously shouting the name of the country where they stopped. The fun part was that this game wasn't just physical training. It challenged memory, forcing players to quickly recall country names while their hearts were still pounding from the chase. It was like a world tour right on your familiar street, a fun geography lesson. Today, Stop still stands out for its simplicity, but sadly this game is fading. The reason isn't a lack of appeal, but the growing anxiety of modern parents. Parents increasingly prefer highly controlled environments for their children, rather than allowing them the freedom to play spontaneously in the streets. If there's one outdoor game that qualifies as a childhood legend, it is Kickball. For many kids in America, this was a required activity during gym and recess. It took the familiar strategy and rhythm of baseball and injected the explosive power of kicking a gigantic red rubber ball. The result was a loud, dramatic game where every child felt like a real athlete. The appeal of Kickball lay in its blend of elements: the speed as you sprinted toward the base, the coordination as the team shouted directions, and the boundless joy of kicking the ball and watching it fly. It taught us teamwork, strategy, and how to deal with the disappointment of getting out. Although Kickball still exists in schools today, it has changed significantly. The original version, where you could throw the ball directly at a runner to tag them out, has almost entirely disappeared. For safety reasons, the rules were tightened, removing the intensity and the thrill that formed the game's soul. The modern game is gentler and less dangerous, but also less dramatic. Childhood wasn't always about specific toys. Sometimes the biggest playground was the entire neighborhood, and games like hide and seek, tag, or cops and robbers became real-life classrooms. These taught us how to work in teams, formulate strategies, and get physical exercise without even realizing it. Do you remember the nervous excitement of sneaking across a neighbor's yard, heart pounding for fear of being caught? Or the joyful thrill of planning an ambush with friends, pretending to be cops, catching robbers? All those chases were our primary form of exercise, expertly disguised as booming laughter and endless afternoons spent outdoors. Sadly, in modern times, these games are gradually disappearing. The streets that were once safe for children to run freely have been replaced by traffic, urbanization, and parental safety concerns. When these games disappear, we lose more than just a form of exercise. We lose the chance to learn communication, negotiation, and, most importantly, to connect with other children in the community. When we think of jumping rope, many picture a simple physical activity. But for those who grew up with it, jumping rope was more than just a game. It was a community ritual. It demanded coordination, precise rhythm, and stamina. Yet, its true value went far beyond exercise. It was a powerful medium for preserving and transmitting folklore. As the rope spun, rhymes and chants, easy to memorize and fun, were sung, containing a treasure trove of tradition. They were like time capsules, carrying memories, stories, and rhythms from one generation to the next. Today, jumping rope still exists in gyms as a cardio workout, but the old soul has faded. It's no longer the gathering of neighborhood kids, taking turns testing their skill and showcasing their abilities through traditional spoken verses. The spread of digital technology, busy schedules, and parental worries have almost erased these moments from the streets. Jumping rope was once the perfect blend of physical training and cultural preservation, a combination the modern world struggles to replace. Do you think the erosion of our neighborhood playtime has contributed to a decline in essential soft skills like teamwork and face-to-face negotiation? Comment, "I think so," if you agree. Kick the Can was the game that energized entire neighborhoods throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s in America. All you needed was an empty can to create a dramatic battle. One child was chosen as it, tasked with guarding the can placed in the center of the field. Meanwhile, the others hid everywhere. The rules were simple. If someone ran out and kicked the can before being tagged, all caught prisoners were freed. What made this game legendary was the sheer tension. Sprinting full speed, heart-pounding, hoping to kick the can just before the tagger's hand touched your shoulder. Simple, inventive, and deeply communal, that was American childhood. If there is one game that perfectly embodied the teamwork, strategy, and adventurous spirit of American childhood, it is Capture the Flag. This game was popular at summer camps, schools, and weekend gatherings across the US from the 60s to the 80s. Two teams divided the field into two territories. Each team had a flag, maybe a handkerchief, a stick, or a t-shirt, placed in a protected area. The goal was to infiltrate the opponent's territory, seize their flag, and bring it safely back to your base. The game's appeal lay in its combination of speed and strategy. The feeling when you ran full tilt, the flag clutched in your hand, hearing your teammates cheer and opponents chasing close behind, is a moment you never forget. This game taught kids teamwork, sacrifice for the group, and the sweet taste of collective victory. For American city kids, especially in New York and Philadelphia, stickball was the street baseball of their youth. No specialized bats? Use a broom handle. No baseball? A small rubber ball was enough. And the alleyway, the parking lot, or even a quiet street became the playing field. The rules were simple, like baseball, but much more flexible. Hitting the ball far, over the roof, or across the block always erupted in excitement. The unique spirit of stickball was improvisation. Bases could be manhole covers, book bags, or anything marking the spot. Stickball reflected the American spirit, creative, not needing perfect conditions, only community and fun. It created indelible summer memories, where the sound of the ball bouncing echoed between red brick buildings, and the kids believed they were playing the World Series right on their street. Among countless outdoor games, Leapfrog was one of the simplest, yet yielded the most laughter. This game was hugely popular in American schoolyards and parks during the 60s to 80s. The rules were straightforward. One person crouched down, hands braced on their knees. The next person took a running start, leaped over their back, shouted, "Leapfrog," and then crouched down for the next person. The joy came from coordination, agility, and the hilarious failures when someone missed the leap and tumbled onto the grass. This game helped children train their spring and flexibility, but above all, their team spirit. For many Americans, Leapfrog is associated with golden summer afternoons when groups of friends leaped until exhaustion, laughing all the while. It's a memory of innocence and joy that needed no props, no technology, just friends and a patch of grass. In American elementary school yards during the 70s and 80s, Foursquare was almost a recess ritual. The cement court was marked into 4 squares, each one a player's territory. Using a large rubber ball, the goal was to bounce the ball back and forth, trying to eliminate others to claim the highest position, the King's Square. The beauty of Foursquare lay in its combination of reflexes, strategy, and a bit of luck. The player in the King's Square served the ball, and if an opponent let the ball bounce out or mishandled it, they were eliminated. Every bounce, every unexpected chop of the ball sent the group cheering. Foursquare was a social lesson in miniature. Everyone wanted the king's spot, but they had to hold it with skill and patience. Many Americans still clearly recall the feeling of triumph when they held the king spot for the entire recess, a small but glorious childhood victory. We can't travel back to the past, but recognizing and honoring these lost forms of play is an investment in our future. And be sure to hit that subscribe button to join us on our next journey back to yesterday.